Hello, Adam Stark here. I am going to go over one of my greatest works of writing I have ever done. This one is strongly argued to be my best work because this one just has everything. It really fits the mold of like a perfect rap. This rap and this song is done so well, and I'm very proud of it. This is like, for example, the first song or rap I would show anybody that's never heard of me. This is a great way to show off my talent and my skills. And it has it all in this. It has different flows, patterns, it has punchlines, it has crazy good rhyming, but none of it gets off track. It is all to do with the subject at hand. And it has just amazing punchlines, especially given the subject matter. You wouldn't think there would be, but I find ways to do it. It's got specifically tailored material, so it's not like it's generic or it doesn't come off that way or anything. And on top of all of that, there is no bad words in this. So you could show this to anybody and they would all be able to appreciate it and, show kids even if they wanted to and whatever. And if it wasn't for the fact that everybody knows or has experienced waiting in line via on foot or in a vehicle, which I tackle both situations in this song, by the way, you could even say it would be educational, too, if it wasn't for that fact that everybody's already done it. So I am going to read the lyrics of this song word for word, verbatim. I am not going to rap them the way that I actually do in the song. You should listen to that itself to hear it in the way it's supposed to be, in the really well-done way that it was done there. This is just me going over all the lines, going over all the multiple literal meanings. There's a triple literal meaning in this one that's really cool. And I am going to just go over my writing process and any other things I feel like I should, touch base on here. So, starting off with the lyrics right at the beginning. Even if we debate how much we hate waiting in lines, it's okay if our definitions intertwine. I promise, honestly, your insinuations are just fine. People endlessly debating over time. What's the definition of waiting in line? So basically the start of this, amazing rhyming. I hit every note with a rhyme. I am rhyming internally in here as well, which is skillfully done when you're keeping it on base with the same subject, because people can rhyme internally all they want, but a lot of times it has to do with other things. But in this case, I kept it with the same subject as well, which is even more talented. And the thing is, I'm basically just asking out the question, okay, everybody knows about waiting in line, so this is a universally tackled subject. And that's why this is part of a series I've done called Making Substance with Basic Subjects. This is the first one I'm doing on this. I forgot to mention, by the way, this came out on November 3rd, 2018. And it was really cool because right after I released this, the big homie Sean S. Beats, shout out to you, my man, he put this on a song of his, on a beat that he put together and allowed me to put it on my channel, and it's just phenomenal. It sounds amazing. And so thank you so much for that, bro. But anyway, so the first couple lines here is basically setting the tone. Okay, I'm rhyming incredibly well, and I'm saying, hey, waiting in line, we know what it is. And guess what? Even if you and me disagree on exactly what it means to wait in line, it's okay, because they're both going to meet at the base of it's painful, it's annoying, it's boring, it's strenuous at times, and it can be a longer time than you would wish. So it's like, that's what I'm saying on here is, even if you're going to literally debate with my definition of waiting in line, we're still going to be somewhat in agreement, is what I'm saying here, okay? And so that I'm also saying that I am totally open to other people's opinions on what waiting in line is, okay? And then I'm continuing with the lines here. A frozen hazard pattern where no one hasn't scattered. Okay, so that's just really good rhyming right there, and that is going off of the previous line where I say, what's the definition of waiting in line? And this is my way of defining it with a perfect rhyme pattern. A frozen hazard pattern where no one hasn't scattered. It's just amazing. Because it's literally a pattern of people in line, and it's frozen because, why? Because you need to wait, and it's a hazard because, time is something that is of value, and if somebody were to be coming in that direction, well, everybody's stuck in line. You know what I mean? There's so many layers to it, and no one hasn't scattered. So, I mean, at least when you're initially looking at it, no one hasn't scattered from the line. It's still all there. Okay, so that's my way to define waiting in line in like a literal sense, which is just so perfectly worded and rhymed. Okay, continuing with the lyrics here. How should I describe this 1 mile length lineup? Down the drain with my time today, my mind is made, I'm stuck. And it barely gets to move inches, couple footsteps every few minutes. Okay, so just to briefly sum up those lyrics right there. So I'm basically describing what this is. Now, a 1 mile length lineup, that of course could be an exaggeration, but it's commonly enough used where it's like, okay, it's like, yeah, this, how long are you going to be at the drive-thru? Well, it's going for miles. These are common uses of measurements that people would say. And unless you're, using other part of the metric system, you might say kilometers. But anyways, that's really aside the point. So, and what I'm saying is, yeah, down the drain with my time, and I'm saying my mind is made up that I am stuck here. And I worded that, again, with these perfectly worded internal rhyme structures that I came up with, but still dealing with the same subject, not getting off topic or nothing. And then I said it barely moves any inches, a couple footsteps every few minutes, because that is literally what happens in a lot of lines. It seems like every few minutes the line moves up, but it barely gets to move. This is something you all know. You all can relate to this. I'm simply putting what you already know as human beings into perfectly rhymed writing. That's what I am doing. And that's what makes it talented, because anybody could have made a song about waiting in line, but I am doing it better than anyone else could have. Okay? Continuing with the lyrics here. Cramming up spaces you seem to barely fit, standing frustrated with nowhere to sit, having some faith when it moves you cherish it. And then I'm saying, so with those really good rhymes here, I'm basically saying, again, reiterating what we already know. Crammed up spaces you seem to barely fit. Yeah, people in lines, they're not always the best behaving. I mean, sometimes people will give each other a good distance, sometimes they don't, and usually they don't, to be honest. And you're frustrated because you have to stand in lines, you don't really get to sit. I mean, rarely do I ever see somebody actually sit like on the cold floor waiting in line. It just doesn't really work that way. And so the second you get to move it forward, you get a lot of excitement, and that's why I said you cherish it. Okay, continuing with the lyrics here. The line and your temper coincide, a standstill as you stand still in a frozen line. Okay, and then I don't want to continue because that gets into something else. But so the line and your temper are side by side. They are on the same wavelength. When one thing happens, your anger and your temper goes in this direction, and when the other thing happens, as in the line's actually moving and stuff, you get happier. It's right there, and it's been in front of your eyes your whole life, experiencing lines, and I am simply putting that into very, very well written lyrics. Okay, and I also, just a little wordplay, I said it's a standstill as you stand still in a frozen line. Stand still, frozen, and stand still, stand space still. Just some wordplay there. Okay, and then this is the next part. You'll notice your temper starts to raise when the following starts happening as it changes. Massive invigoration, tampering with your patience, sensory deprivation, legs will begin to cave in, get in tuned with a sense of anguish. So what I'm saying here is, this is what happens, okay? You get really upset because you start losing your patience as time goes on. You start getting sensory deprivation because why? If you stare at the same thing, you're looking at the same people, and it can really play tricks on your eyes. It can make your eyes, become weakened, because if you stare at the same thing long enough, it's not good. And this is something that can happen if you're waiting in line, as one of many examples, okay? You're losing your patience, your legs will begin to get cramped up, at least to some degree. If you're in really good shape, okay, maybe not necessarily enough to notice, but technically when you're standing still, that's what's happening, and then a given amount of time, it would still bother you anyway. And so you're going to be feeling anguish from this, because nobody likes this. Nobody likes waiting in lines. And so all this is going to happen. All these changes are going to come to happen to you when you are waiting in line, but here I am rhyming it perfectly, explaining it in a really good way without just, being like one of these dumb rappers nowadays that would just say in the most simplest way, like, yeah, this sucks, this is boring. And nope, I'm actually giving you specifically tailored material about this, and I am using, big words to describe it better than they could. All right, continuing here. Watch your watch as the clock tick-tocks. You'll stop and flip-flop your thoughts that you're here getting ripped off. So this is, again, really good rhyming, great rhyme structures, great flows here. The tempo is on point here, too, as well, in the actual song that I do and I perform, okay? So I'm saying, watch your watch. That's wordplay. It's a homophone. Watch means two different things. And then as the clock tick-tocks, that means time is going and time is on the watch, okay? You'll stop and you'll flip-flop your thoughts that you're here getting ripped off. In other words, you're second-guessing, should you be here in the first place? Is the line even worth it at this point for whatever it is you're there for? You may literally want to consider leaving that line and doing something else at the time. You might not want to continue waiting, is what I'm saying. And this is something we've all experienced. You have, I know you have. You've been in the line, you're like, I don't know, do I even want to try? Is whatever I'm waiting for right now even worth it at this point? And if it is still worth it, then you still might be thinking, does it have to be done right now? Because the line is so bad for whatever it is, okay? Now, perfectly worded there, and here we go. Now I'm continuing the lyrics here. Some people take big steps when it's time to move with the crowd. Dumb people stay still with their shoes glued to the ground. Perfectly said. This is something we all agree with. And like I said, behaviors of people in lines is so different, because some people, when the line moves, they're moving, like they're literally moving forward like they're supposed to. And then some people, they won't move unless the line moves like 2 or 3 times, and then they decide it's time to move. And they might also just be distracted on their phone or whatever they're doing instead of moving anyway, because they're not paying attention to the front of the line or that the line's moving. And so then that's why I say with their shoes glued to the ground, because it's just an expression basically saying, hey, look, it's annoying. Like the line moves up, you want to move up, but you're dependent on who's in front of you in the line in order to do that. Okay? Anyways, continuing here. As you wish that the line would just sprint ahead, you're forced to listen to other conversations instead. This is basically simply just saying, when you're stuck in a line, you might, I'm not saying always, of course, but enough times in my experience, and I know others have, you're going to listen to other people talking. And they might not be necessarily annoying, but you still won't want to listen to other people talking most of the time. They might be talking about something annoying. They might just be annoying people talking. They might be talking about something dumb, or they might be talking about something that you have a problem with, like you don't agree with their viewpoint on it. They might be like a really disrespectful person, and you're a really respectful person. Or if you're really a disrespectful person, they might be talking about something in a really respectful way that you don't agree with, and you don't like that they're talking about it in the opposite sense of how you are. So you're listening to other people's conversations. It's terrible, and it's another reason why you wish the line would sprint ahead. Okay, continuing here with the lyrics. You memorize everyone's shirt designs and hair colors. You begin to no longer hold in your farts to spare others. Now that's just funny. This is a funny line. I'm basically saying, because after being around the same people, strangers even, long enough, you're going to begin to pinpoint things out. Your brain does this for you. You're going to be like, okay, I see the one guy wearing this logo on his shirt, and then you're going to keep remembering that logo for a while. You're like, yeah, I keep seeing this logo on this guy's shirt, because when you're in line, you kind of look back and forth, you look side to side, you stare behind you to check the back, you look in front of you to see if it's moving, you check on your phone, you talk to anyone that's with you in the line or whatever, and you will notice hair colors, people, hairstyles as well, shirt designs. And then just to be funny, I'm saying, if you're really fed up at this point, you will no longer even hold in your farts to spare others. In other words, your flatulence is just going to be going off not silent because you're like that much done putting up with being polite, because you're like, this line sucks, this line is terrible, I'm not even going to be like polite anymore. I'm just going to let it all rip because I've had enough, right? Just a funny line. Okay, but, excuse me, next lyrics. But to cope with boredom, you could look at your phones after all. Use your judgment. Maybe even phone someone, but it's up to you to make that call. Dope. This is a double literal meaning. This is awesome. This is, again, like I said, anybody else who would have wrote a rhyme about waiting in line, a rap about it, they could have mentioned what I'm mentioning about, yeah, you can use your phone if you're that bored, but none of them would have took the time and the skill and the talent that I have in an adept manner of satisfaction to make it a double literal meaning punchline. So I said, you could look at your phones after all, because you're bored and that's what you're going to do, look at your phones. And I said, you could even phone someone, which is a saying, it's a common saying. Phone someone just means to give them a call on their phone. That's a common saying. I said, but it's up to you to make that call. Now, make that call is the double meaning. Make that call means to literally make the call on your phone, calling another person with the phone. But make that call is also a judgment. And that's why I use the word judgment in the setup, because it's a common saying, make that call. Like, hey, Sergeant, should we flank the enemy forces from the left side? It's up to you to make that call. That's a common saying, make that call. It's to make a judgment choice. And then phone someone is like literally making a call. So that's just a dope double meaning, and it still has to do with the same subject matter of waiting in line, a universally understood subject that we've all experienced, and I am putting it perfectly into writing here. Okay, continuing with the lyrics here. So bored you'll want to drink to replenish from refreshments. I'd worry about needing to use the bathroom and losing your spot when you'd split. Oh yeah, this is just a funny line. When you're in line, you might be like, oh, I have a drink. This is good. I can just spend this time drinking something, right? Because when you're drinking and eating or whatever, you're happy, you're enjoying it. So it's like you could be doing that. But then it's a problem also, because if you drink to the point where you have to use the restroom, you're in trouble, because then you're like, oh, great. Can you hold it until the line is done? Or do you have to leave the line and use the restroom, and then you'd lose your spot because you'd have to go to the back of the line and you're not likely able to keep your spot? And I'd say probably almost never would you actually be able to keep your spot. I mean, it just doesn't happen, right? So, unless you have a big group with you of more than one person, obviously, in your group, then someone could save your spot. That's different, obviously. But I'm saying, just a funny line. Just, if you're drinking is fun, but if you do it too much, you'd have to use the bathroom and lose your spot. All right, the next line is really good. I love this line. This is one of my favorite lines in this. Really good. Okay, lyrics here. You might see other people cut in line when using methods of stealth. Consider that it could cost you, so you'll have to decide whether to budget yourself. This is a crazy talented double literal meaning. Okay, so if you are going to budge in line, the best way to do that technically would be using stealth, like cutting in front of someone when they don't even notice it, because then you don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to worry about commotion. You don't have to worry about people freaking out. If you're able to sneakily get your way inserted into the line, you do it with stealth. Then there's no problem because nobody noticed you were stealthy enough to get away with it, etc., etc. Okay, now I'm saying it could cost you, which is a saying that means you could get punished. Cost you means get punished. That's a slang term that's commonly used. So if that happens, you'd have to decide whether to budget yourself, as in budge the line. BUDGE space IT, budge it, the line. Budging in line means cutting in line. Whether you do it with stealth or not doesn't matter. Budging in line, you'd have to decide whether or not to do that, because you could get in trouble. People could beat you up or just yell at you or call somebody that works at the area you're at and they could escort you out or whatever. Any number of things could happen, right? And it's even better that it's a double literal meaning, because since I use the slang words that it could cost you, what does it mean when you are going to consider the fact that you could be getting costed anything, as in literally costed as in money. You would have to decide whether to budget yourself. Budget. Budget. Budget means money management. Budget means knowing your finances. So to cost you as in that kind of budget, or to cost you as in you could be in physical danger, to budging the line yourself. It's just such a dope double meaning, double literal meaning, and it has to do with the same subject matter of waiting in line. Just so amazing. I'm really proud of everything I did in this rap. This rap is just incredible, and I'm so glad that I thought about doing this and I nailed it. Okay, next line. It becomes real fun once you're the line leader. To tell you how it feels, it doesn't take a mind reader. Being the person at the front, you can turn your head as you fully grasp that you check your distance as you reminisce this looking back. This is an incredible double literal meaning. I love this line too. This is so good. So in other words, when you finally are at the front of the line, this is basically what I'm saying. When you're at the front of the line, how does it feel? It doesn't take a mind reader. That's me just being funny, saying like it's obvious how it feels. It feels great. You don't have to ask somebody, how does it feel to be the line leader now? You don't have to ask anybody that because you already know. It's good. You hate waiting and you wanted to get your thing that you're there to get at the front of the line, whatever it is. So you're happy when that happens. You don't have to think. You don't have to wonder. You just know what it is. And that's obvious. And I'm just putting that here, but with good rhymes. Anyways, being the person at the front, you can turn your head as you fully grasp. And then with perfect internal rhyming with the subject, I said, check your distance as you reminisce this looking back. Amazing. Looking back is the double meaning, okay? Double literal meaning, because what you have is you're checking your distance by turning your head around. When you're in the front of the line, you are literally looking back, because what are you doing? Your head is literally facing the opposite direction of in front of you. It's looking back, as in behind you, as in backwards, etc. And the other meaning of looking back is, I said in the setup, to make it a double literal meaning, as you reminisce this, looking back. Looking back is a commonly used saying and phrase that just means, you are reminiscing, you are thinking about something that happened before, so a memory or something, even a very recent memory. That's reminiscing. So looking back, checking physically your distance behind you, and reminiscing. Just an amazing double literal meaning, and it's all the same subject matter. Great internal rhyming. I just nailed it on this one. Okay, next lyrics here. Thinking about my run-on sentences, people being so close and crammed together here, and it being so slow and totally unbearable, this line spacing is terrible. This is it. This is technically sound. This is the best triple literal meaning in this song. Well, this is the only one in that song, but this is the best line, in this song, because it's a literal triple meaning. It has to do with the subject matter still about waiting in line. I didn't just go off topic and rhyme a random triple literal meaning about something else. This is about this subject still. So it has to do with pacing and spacing, okay? This is what it is. Because spacing and the word pacing, you add an S in the front to make spacing. That's what it is. But they sound exactly the same anyways. So I'm making fun of myself. I'm saying, thinking about my run-on sentences, then you skip to the end. This line's pacing is terrible because the pacing is god-awful. Because if they're using run-on sentences, grammatically speaking, like being graded from like an English writing standpoint, it's terrible. The pacing for lines in run-on sentences is terrible. Okay, and then I said, people being so close and crammed together here with my setup again, this line's spacing is terrible. That makes sense too. If you're being close to other people and you're crammed together, then the line's spacing is terrible. The spacing, the distance between you and the person in front of you, person behind you, is bad, and you're crammed together, then your spacing is terrible. The line, as in the physical lineup of people, that line's spacing is terrible. And then the third meaning with my setup, it being so slow and totally unbearable, this line's pacing is terrible. because as in, instead of my rhyming with run-on sentences, that line's pacing being terrible, now I'm saying the physical, literal lineup of people is slow and unbearable. Therefore, the line's pacing is terrible. If a line is unbearable and the line up of people is slow, then that line's pacing is terrible. It all makes sense. It's a perfect triple literal meaning, and it still has to do with this subject matter. Just amazing. I'm really proud of this line. Continuing here. These lines aren't just defined as people standing single file near and far. It could also be defined through a drive-through or traffic type route with a bus, truck, your bicycle, motorcycle, or even your car. Bumper to bumper, oh how someone would suffer. So this is basically, I'm transitioning using really good rhyming. I'm transitioning to saying, okay, lines are not just defined as people. Lines can also be vehicle, because that's a fact. When you're waiting to get into a parking lot, when you're waiting to get through a drive-through restaurant and whatever it is, or sightseeing, whatever it is, you can have a line of vehicles. So that's what I'm saying. It can be that way as well. And so I said it can be defined through a drive-through or traffic type route, because a line, you can be stuck in traffic that is barely moving. That's a line technically. And I mentioned it's not just with one type of vehicle. A bus, truck, your bicycle, motorcycle, or even your car, because it could be many different things. Bumper to bumper, which is common saying, that means there's traffic. Oh, how someone would suffer. Okay, now continuing with the lyrics here. Radio searching is urgent, and your nerves hit the worst hit when you feel like something's wrong. Because as you truck along, you just happen to be unable to be adapting to the airwaves to find another song that you would willingly listen to. So these lyrics are basically saying, okay, when you're just so fed up with being in a line, whether it's traffic or a drive-through or whatever it is, radio searching sometimes becomes your thing you need to do. Like, it really does. You're like, I need to listen to something, right? And you're going to get upset, which is why I say your nerves hit the worst hit. When you feel like something's wrong, because as you truck along is a saying that just means as you keep going, you're unable to be able to find the type of music that you just are in the mood for, or the song that you want at the time. It just usually doesn't happen, and then you get even more upset because your radio is disappointing you. It's not working, which is why I did that. And I also decided, just for fun, I used the word to, as in T-O, many times in a row in this line. I just wanted to do that for some reason, just because I felt like it'd be something to stand out. And I think that worked to that effect. So you get the point. Waiting in line already sucks, but then you get even more mad because you're like, oh, I need to find something to listen to, and it never works. It never does perfectly. Once in a while maybe, but usually it never works where you're like finding the song or the right radio station at the time where there's not a commercial or something. Okay? Continuing with the lyrics here. But you go nuts trying, this is true. Do take note of this as well. In your car, you're losing it. You stare clear at the rearview mirror as it becomes your best friend. Wow, just look at yourself. This is just a dope, funny punchline. This is me saying, okay, you know what? Also take note of the fact that, yeah, you're failing to find a song, and it makes you go nuts because you're like, gosh, I can't find what I want to listen to make the time go by. Like, I just want a song I know, and your radio disappoints you. But on top of that, especially if you're in a drive-through and other situations as well, you might be staring at your rearview mirror for a while because you become bored. You're like, I don't know what to do with my eyes right now. Like, the line's not moving, so I'm just going to look in the rearview mirror. If you stare at it long enough, and I'm saying in a funny way, it becomes your best friend. Why? Because it's like, that's your thing right there that is keeping you company, is your rearview mirror. That is it right there. And I said, so if you're staring at it long enough, I'm saying, wow, just look at yourself. That's a saying, just look at yourself. That is a commonly used saying that means, oh my gosh, do you have any idea how badly you've lost your mind? Like how dumb you look? Or wow, look at you, you're a failure, or you're terrible. And so I'm saying, if if you became a best friend with a rearview mirror, you would say, wow, just look at yourself. Like, you're friends with an inanimate object. But it's also, if you're literally looking in a mirror, you would be looking at yourself, as I mentioned. So, just a funny punchline. That's all it is. It's not a double literal meaning. It's just a funny double implied meaning punchline. Continuing here. Keep it in drive with you, foot hard on the floor as you move a few inches away. If your car had emotions, it would say, this is a long shift, and it's tired of working all day, give it a break. So this is a dope wordplay association. I say things like shift and break, and the reason that this works out here is because we are talking about cars at this point in time, or technically vehicles or whatever. Well, I use the word car, so, but I'm making the point to say, if your car was not an inanimate object, and it would say it's been a long shift, and shift can mean obviously a couple different things. A shift can mean a work shift, because if it's working all day, like I mentioned in this line, working is a shift. You have a shift at your work, at your occupation, at your job. So a long shift, and it would want a break, as in if it's been a long day of work, you would want a break, as in a time away from having your shift, your work, right? And it's also just saying, not double literal meaning, but it's also saying that if it was in a long shift, as in a gear on a car, as in it's in drive, it would want you to be not working it so hard to the bone, keeping it in the drive gear if the line isn't moving, so you could give it a break, as in put it on break. It's just a double implied, not literal meaning. It's just a funny line. It's good word association of, you're in your vehicle, and just if your car would be talking, this is what it would be saying to you. You're working me to death here. I'm bored. I want to drive. I don't want to be in this line. Okay, continuing here. This is a really good double literal meaning line, and this is the perfect way to possibly end this rap perfectly. Okay. You'll make it to the front of the line soon enough. Where to go from here? The exact answer is forwards, so keep moving up. Oh man, just the perfect double literal meaning about ending this rap, and it has great rhyming to it, and it is also all pertaining to the same subject matter of the song. So it's just perfect. So in case nobody caught it, okay, so forwards, FORWARDS, and four space words, FOUR space WORDS, sounds exactly the same. So I said, you'll make it to the front of the line soon enough. The front is where? In front of you, four words. It is, you're going forwards in that frontward direction. So where to go from here? Here as in physically where to go from here if you're waiting in line, and where to go from here is a saying like where to go from here, as in like in a looking at this, like, okay, planning out something, like where do I go from here? I'm cooking an omelet, I've cracked my eggs and mixed them together, where do I go from here? Oh, next you have to put it in the pan and turn the heat on, whatever. That's just a saying, where to go from here. So I'm saying where to go from here. The exact answer is forwards, because technically you need to go forwards. So you're saying forwards, you need to go in front of you to get to the front of the line, obviously, and I say, so keep moving up. Moving up is the same as saying going forwards, is the same as saying going in front of you. And then four space words. The exact answer is four words, as in four words, four of them. There is words, there is four of them, so keep moving up. That is exactly four words. And that is exactly true for how to get to the front of the line, because you could say, how to get to the front of the line? Keep moving up, right? But so I'm answering the question. So where to go from here, the exact answer is four words, so keep moving up. And where to go from here, the exact answer is forwards. You have to go forwards, go straight, so keep moving up. Just a perfect, literal, double meaning to end this rap. I am very proud of this. This is always going to be like I'll call it my resume song. I'm not saying this is my best lyrics ever made. I'm not saying anything like that. I am very proud of this, though. It has everything. It has fast rapping. It has great rhyming, perfect rhyme structures. It has a great subject, universally understood subject matter that everybody can understand, relate to, and has experience. It has a triple literal meaning and a ton of double literal meanings, and all of this has to do with the same subject matter. I don't, strafe away from the subject at hand, even for a moment. This entire thing is still about waiting in line, and I define waiting in line in every possible way and in every possible type of example, whether it be in vehicles or in traffic or by foot. And I explain everything that you would possibly think of in it. So this is my point. Anybody else can make a song about waiting in line and make a rap about it. They ain't going to do it better than how I done it. So I am very proud of this. If you guys have any questions at all, just feel free to message me or write me a comment. Click like, subscribe, and thank you so much for listening, and have a good rest of your day.